Formula One testing is well underway, and one thing has stood out so far: the imperious pace of Max Verstappen. Red Bull, with their newly designed sidepods, have innovated on a design that the rest of the grid were trying to copy, and it shows. But is the ominous pace shown by Max actually all it seems, or should we expect far more from the rest of the grid soon? Today, I'll check out the secrets of the RB20 and why it may not be as far ahead as testing has made it seem. So, don't go anywhere. Driving the innovative RB20 on day one of preseason testing, Max Verstappen managed to top the timing sheet by 1.14 seconds. Lap times in testing are notoriously unreliable form guides because of the number of variables at play. However, Verstappen's car looked poised and quick whenever it was out on track. Red Bull entered 2024 on the back of the most dominant season in F1 history last year, in which they won all but one of the 22 races. The new RB20 car has drawn admiring glances up and down the pit lane for the number of innovations it includes, despite the team describing it as an evolution of last year's model. Verstappen ran all day in the Red Bull, completing 143 laps, more than 2 race distances, with no obvious problems, and when he set his fastest time, his race engineer Giampiero Lambiase could be seen grinning with satisfaction in the Red Bull garage. Fuel load, track conditions, time of day, tyres and power unit settings are among the factors that can distort the competitive picture in testing as teams seek to hone their cars before the first race. Nonetheless, the RB20's pace and how it looked on track caught the attention of observers across the sport. Giving his first impressions of the RB20, Verstappen said, "It feels good to be back in an F1 car again, and I had fun out on track today. We covered a lot of laps and tried quite a few things with the car, which was important, so happy overall with how it went." Giampiero Lambiase also revealed how the burning questions the team had about their new package were answered over the first day of running. The winter break was fairly short this year, but nonetheless, the amount of work which has gone into the car has been impressive as usual, he commented. "We came to Bahrain with a few unknowns around a relatively new car, but we've tested most of the fundamentals on day one and got the answers we needed to. Now we have a solid base to take on to days 2 and 3 when Checo takes over the car in the morning." Plenty of talk on day one of testing was about what Red Bull have done to their car and why they've done it. After dominating the sport last year in a way that's rarely been seen before, evolving their upper body aero in such a dramatic way was a big surprise to everyone. After all, why fix what isn't broken? But the team felt that if they wanted to repeat what they did in 2023, they had to innovate. Adrian Newey said during day one that, "We realized that everyone else will copy our previous year's car. If we'd only relied on further development, we would have been vulnerable." What they have done to the car over the winter was on full show during day one of testing, and there were plenty of surprises on show. The openings in the sidepods were of particular interest. Photos were quickly posted to Twitter of 2 different sidepod inlets. One was a vertical slit that hugged the cockpit sides, while the second was a horizontal one, tucked away under a big overbite that was an extension of the sidepod's top surface. The aim of these sidepods were the same as the RB19's. Red Bull wants air to travel under the sidepod to energize the vortexes that run along the floor edge, trapping air under the floor. They also want air to travel over the sidepod, connecting with the air from under the sidepod just in front of the rear axle, where it can be channeled over the diffuser and beam wing, increasing rear downforce. So while the sidepods look very different, the actual aero philosophies remain the same. It's like a complex maths problem. There will be many different ways to find the solution, and Red Bull have found a different solution for this year. Whether it's better or not remains to be seen, but the team sounds confident it is. What is new to the car is the large cannons that extend from the edge of the halo, along the upper edge of the engine cover, all the way to the back of the car. There is an inlet into each cannon just behind the driver's head on the top of the car, which was hidden from us at the car reveal. Inside these cannons will be loads of cooling equipment which has been moved from the sidepod. You can kind of think of them as a secondary sidepod if you want. This allows Red Bull to run much thinner sidepods, allowing them to reduce the size of the sidepod intake and the volume of the sidepod, creating more space for air to travel underneath. Those big cannons do serve another purpose though. They create a channel for air to travel through and onto the rear aero devices, improving the performance of the beam wing and diffuser again. This entire setup is aimed at getting more performance out of the rear end of the car, which in turn helps to energize the air leaving the underfloor, increasing the downforce created by the floor, which is the most important aero part for performance in the current regulations. It is an innovative solution to the current regulations, but it's definitely still an evolution of the previous concept, not a complete overhaul. Don't get me wrong, the car looked very good on track, and Red Bull will be the team to beat this season. But that would have been the case if they changed absolutely nothing about their car over the winter. Will Buxton gave his rankings of the teams after day one, and Red Bull were obviously on top, and that was a general feeling of everyone. He surprisingly ranked Mercedes 6th of everyone, but more on that later. First, I want to talk about why that first day of running for Red Bull may not be as ominous as it appears. First off, early on day 2, Charles Leclerc put in a time just 4/10 off Verstappen's best from day 1. Charles' time was set during the morning session when the track is in a far from optimal condition due to the temperatures. But, as I have already said, times don't always mean a huge amount, so why else should we be taking Red Bull's early performances with a pinch of salt? Well, everyone has different run plans for testing, which means that times tend to be all over the place. Verstappen's 1.1 second margin over Lando Norris's McLaren and Carlos Sainz's Ferrari probably exaggerated the real advantage, given that Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes didn't make anything like as many low-fuel performance runs as Verstappen, who made 5 I think, 2 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, when the track was significantly faster. His first attack lap in the morning was around 0.3 seconds faster than Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin had just lapped, and only around 0.2 seconds faster than Charles Leclerc's Ferrari would subsequently go, despite the Monegasque having done this time on his 3rd flying lap, after having locked up on its first. Mercedes concentrated more fully than anyone on long runs and made no serious low-fuel runs, so George Russell's lowly pace in the headline numbers is not representative. Mercedes' pace and how the car looked all day was still worrying for many fans. At the end of day 1, they were 2.765 seconds slower than Max Verstappen's Red Bull. If that time remained consistent through to the 2024 Bahrain Grand Prix, they'd finished the 57-lap race on March 2nd around 157 seconds behind the defending champions on a similar strategy. But there is saving graces. The team focused entirely on long runs according to Russell. "We know that it's not about the feeling, but the speed," Russell said after day 1 of testing in Bahrain. Nevertheless, today was about learning and not about chasing performance. We're focused on ourselves at this test, and it'll only be next week where we see where we stack up against the others. We'll be focused on maximizing mileage for learning rather than chasing an optimum sweet spot with the car. Plenty of people will call it sandbagging, but actually, it's just running a different testing plan. Russell was actually very positive about how his first day in the new car went. "We completed lots of laps and have plenty of data to go through tonight," Russell concluded. "We ended the day in a reasonably good spot, and we can build from here over the next 2 days." So while the early performance of the RB20 might have some people scared about a repeat of the 2023 season, it's still very early days, and what we're seeing at the moment on track is not what we'll see when the lights go out for the first race of the season in Bahrain. What are your early impressions of the 2024 car? Are you worried about Red Bull's early performance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.